Tonight we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 4. So if you have a Bible or some way or fashion of getting into the Word, go ahead and turn there, flip there, turn on your phone, do whatever you need to do. Nehemiah chapter 4. And we're going to kind of be going over the whole chapter. But tonight is really going to be a lot about what can we do practically to live out the Word that Nehemiah has given us here. And so we're going to talk a lot about practical things that we can implicate. And so reason for that is because I was talking to Dylan in the back a little bit ago, and I said the way that I read Nehemiah and read through Nehemiah is really like he's writing a journal to himself, and that is what he's doing. Now, obviously, we get some context, and it's kind of written in the way that it's written, of who's saying what and different things like that. But it's written like a journal from Nehemiah and everything that he's going through. Now, who can remember what's going on right now in the book of Nehemiah? Olivia. I saw a hand shoot up. That's great. Phenomenal. Absolutely. So that's exactly what's going on in Nehemiah chapter 4. And so what's led us to this point in Nehemiah chapter 4? Does anybody remember what happened in chapters 1 through 3? The tower? Close. What was said? The walls fell, right? They're rebuilding the walls, right? So what Dylan talked about last week was about unity, coming together as a group and beginning the rebuild process. And so there was a purpose behind the game that we played today. So it wasn't just nothing for nothing. There was a purpose behind that, and there was a purpose behind showing that as an illustration for us. So last week, like I said, Dylan talked about unity, what it means to really be a team and to have teamwork in what we're doing. And so this week, we're going to be talking about facing the opposition, facing the opponent, if you will. Let me ask y'all first, what does the word opposition mean? The ops. What does that mean? Someone who is against you? Okay, absolutely. What else? What else do we think opposition means? Okay, does it necessarily have to be physical? No, what else? Give me some examples of things of opposition for y'all. Okay, that's the way to hit it right on the nose. But remember, tonight we're getting really practical on some of the things that we're going to be talking about too. So what are some things that are oppositions for y'all in your daily life? The internal op. Okay, yeah, temptation, that's one, yes. Your brother? Okay, absolutely. Your sister? Okay, absolutely. For some of us, it might be anxiety. For some of us, it might be a cell phone. For some of us, it might like these are the things that I'm trying to think of. What kind of things are oppositions in our life? What things really get in the way of us having a really true relationship with Christ? What gets in our way? Reason I ask that is because my first point that I'm going to point out here in a minute will be recognizing the opposition. Recognizing the opposition in front of us. So before we get there, I'm going to real quick read y'all the definition of opposition from no other than Google. So, getting to the real depth of the word. No, I think it was Merriam-Webster is the one that it came from. But there's two definitions that come with this, but in particularly the second one really hit with what we're talking about. But the first one is resistance or dissent expressed in action or argument. And then the second one is a group of adversaries or competitors, especially a rival political party or athletic team. So that's one that we're really going to be focusing on, particularly that first half of that definition. So a group of adversaries or competitors. Now let me ask y'all, why do you think that Nehemiah faced such opposition in what he was doing, trying to rebuild the walls? What's that? Remember, I can't hear, so. I imagine the Babylonians didn't like didn't like rebuilding the wall. Why do you think they didn't? Protection? They didn't want protection? Expand on that part. Right. So imagine this is Jerusalem, okay? You got Jerusalem in the center, and then every which way around it, you have everybody against them. Everywhere you go, you got somebody against them. And we're actually going to read about that in particular here in chapter 4. But what we see in going on is the establishment of the church back in Jerusalem. And so by establishing that connection with Christ, again, you have quite literally spiritual, I'm forgetting my word here, and I don't have it on my notes, but a sense of spiritual lack of spiritual foundation within the city of Jerusalem, and they're trying to rebuild that. So they're not just trying to rebuild the walls, but they're also trying to rebuild, if you will, their connection with Christ and build upon that. So let me read through chapter 4 real quick, and then we'll dive into it. So starting out at verse 1, chapter 4 says, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became furious. He mocked the Jews before his colleagues and the powerful men of Samaria, and said, "What are these pathetic Jews doing? Can they restore it by themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they ever even finish it? Can they bring these burnt stones back to life from the mounds of rubble?" Then Tobiah, the Ammonite, who was beside him, said, "Indeed, even if a fox climbed up what they are building, he would break down their stone wall." Now, this is how I imagine Tobiah. He's like in the background. He's like over here, and he's kind of like the hype man of what's going on. He's just like, yeah, go get him. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, nothing can work out. Nothing's going to happen. Like, that's just how, yeah. Like, I just imagine him in the background. I was trying to find the movie that I'm thinking of the guy coming from, because I can envision it in my head, but I can't, like, envision it to Google it. So it's just not working out. But I just imagine him in the background, like, yeah, go get him. Like, you can't, they can't do anything. Just the hype man back. Right, just in the background and not, not willing to make a big, bold statement, but just like agreeing, like you got it, like just on and on and on. And so what he means right here by saying what he says, indeed, even if a fox climbed up what they are building, he would break down their stone wall. So he's being literal. If a fox walked up on this, and fox, they're what? Light on their feet, right? Remember, real practical. They're light on their feet. You'll see them quick. They're there. They're not like swiping, right? Yeah. So my point is what he's saying is if something so light, something so small was to even touch the wall that they're building, then it's still going to crumble. It doesn't matter how strong they think it is, how strong that their building is, it's still going to crumble. So that's what he's agreeing with. He's saying, yep, no, I agree with him. Ain't nothing you can do about it. So this is what I'm saying by you got everybody surrounding them saying nothing can be done right. So verse 4 says, "Listen, our God, for we are give me a minute, guys. Despired. Thank you. Make their insults return on their own heads, and let them be taken as plunder to the land of captivity. Do not cover their guilt or let their sin be erased from your sight, because they have angered the builders." So we rebuilt the wall until the entire wall was joined together up to half its height for the people, and had the will to keep working. When Sanballat, Tobiah, and the Arabs and Ammonites and Ashdodites heard that the repair to the walls of Jerusalem was progressing and that gaps were being closed, they became very furious. They all plotted together to come and fight against Jerusalem and throw it into confusion. So we prayed to our God and stationed a guard because of them day and night. In Judah it was said, "The strength of the laborer fails. Since there is so much rubble, we will never be able to rebuild the wall." And our enemies said, they won't realize it until we're among them and can kill them and stop their work. When the Jews who lived nearby arrived, they said to us time and again, everywhere you turn, they attack us. So I stationed people behind the lowest sections of the wall at the vulnerable areas. I stationed them by families with their swords, spears, and bows. After I made an inspection, I stood up and said to the nobles of the officials, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the great and all-inspiring Lord, and fight for your countrymen, your sons and your daughters, and your wives and your homes. When our enemies heard that we knew their scheme and that God had frustrated it, every one of us returned to his own work on the wall. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half held spears, shields, bows, and armor. The officers supported all the people of Judah who were rebuilding the wall. The laborers who carried the loads worked with one hand and held a weapon with the other. Each of the builders had his sword strapped around his waist while he was building, and the trumpeter was beside me. Then I said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, the work is enormous and spread out, and we are separated far from one another along the wall. Wherever you hear the trumpet sound, rally to us there. Our God will fight for us. So we continued the work while half of the men were holding spears from daybreak until the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, let everyone and his servant spend the night inside Jerusalem, so that they can stand guard by night and work by day. And I, my brothers, my servants, and the men of the guard the guard with me never took off our clothes. Each carried his weapon, even when washing. There's a lot I just threw at y'all. But remember, we're getting real practical tonight. Reason being, Nehemiah, all he did during this whole chapter is they're facing the opposition in front of them. Nobody wanted them to succeed. Nobody wanted Christ to succeed. Nobody wanted to see Christ shown through it all. Guys, sometimes, and this is the what I've seen, illustration I've seen, sometimes we got to stand with a shovel in one hand and a sword in the other. How do we do that? That's a real question. How do we do that? What do I mean by a shovel in one hand and a sword in the other? Sometimes we have to be willing to fight the fight for Christ at the same time while working on ourselves and working on the walls around us. That's tough. I'm not going to sit here and lie to y'all. So what's the first thing that we have to do? This is how Nehemiah lays it out of how we face the opposition. Well, first you have to recognize the opposition. He shows that in verses 1 through 3. Okay, let's go back and reread verses 1 through 3. When Sanballat heard that they were rebuilding the wall, he became furious. He mocked the Jews before his colleagues and the powerful men of Samaria. And he said, what are these pathetic Jews doing? Can they restore it by themselves? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they ever even finish it? Can they bring these burnt stones back to life from the mounds of rubble? Then Tobiah the Ammonite was beside him and said, indeed, even if a fox climbed up what they were building, he would still break down their stone wall. Guys, this is Nehemiah recognizing the opposition in front of him. My question is to y'all is, what kind of oppositions do you see in your own life? And are you even recognizing them? Are you willing to recognize them? That's a big question. Are we willing to even recognize that we have something going on in our life? Are we willing to take that first step in recognizing that? There's so many things that we have that are opposing us, that are telling us you don't need to follow God. You don't need to go over here and even read this and listen to the word that's in front of you. You don't need to focus to that. You need to turn to your cell phone and pick up and open up Google and go to this website and check out this website. You need to text this friend and say, hey, let's go out to this party and let's go out and do this. Let's go out and do that. When clearly, guys, in the word, it tells us not to turn to those things. It starts by facing the opposition, by recognizing the opposition. I'm getting real practical here, guys. How do we recognize the opposition? What do we do? What do y'all think? What is the easiest way for us to recognize the opposition?
The tool that God gave us, the word, usually things that line up with the word are in opposition
Use the word. Absolutely. Use the word. One of the other things that Dylan pointed out last week is doing what? Having what? Unity. Unity. That's why we come to church. That's why we come as a body of believers to be as one in unity. That's why we have to work together to face the opposition in front of us. Like I said, the game had a point to it, so. We have to work together to face that opposition. To get around any way that we think that we can as a body of believers, we have to recognize the opposition in front of us. Allow others to have influence in our life. Biblical influence in our life. So then my question comes, how do we react to that? How do we react to the opposition in front of us? Okay, if we recognize that, let's use for example, we recognize that my opposition in front of me, I'll use one that I struggled with, how I look, my self-image. That was an opposition that I faced in my life. I always was concerned about what other people thought about me. I always was concerned about the way that I looked. I was always concerned about, was I wearing the right type of thing? Was I dressed the right way? Did I own the right brand of pants? Because that's a thing. Thank you. but that's a real thing. Is I was constantly worried about it. That was my opposition. So how did I react to that? I'll tell you exactly what I did, and I'm going to tell you exactly what not to do, and it's what I did. I shoved it down into this deep hole, and I just dug it as deep as I could and said, I'm going to throw you down there, I'm going to cover it up, and I'm not ever going to talk about it. I'm not ever going to face it. I'm not ever going to speak to anybody else about it. You're right. Nobody will ever find it. Nobody will ever know that I struggled with it. Nobody will ever know any of it, right? Nothing else will happen because I struggle because I'm shoving this down into a hole. Guys, some of you who may be struggling with pornography, shove it down deep into a hole. Never talk about it. Never talk about struggling with somebody. Never try to change that. Never try to face it. Never try to face the opposition. And something eventually comes out. All of our sin will eventually come out to somebody. Now who that is, I'm assuming y'all know. Because none of y'all are responding to me. Who does our sin eventually come in? Thank you. Thank you. Ultimately, when we seek that, sit at the seat of judgment and face that. So, guys, you have to recognize the opposition and pursue meaningful goals. Pursue meaningful goals. Now, what's another way that we can respond to it? Nehemiah shows us right here in chapter 4. He responds to it with prayer. I'm going to backtrack. They respond to it with prayer, but they also seek action. They're acting upon the prayer that they're pursuing. We can't be expected to have work done without willing to put work in. We cannot be expected to have work done without putting work in. Guys, we can recognize the opposition all we want. We can say, I want to face it all we want, but if we're not willing to actually face it, what good does it do? If I sat back with my self-image and struggles with self-image, and I sat back and said, okay, I'm ready to face it. I'm ready to look forward. I'm ready to talk to somebody about it. If I sat back and just kept saying that over and over and over and over and over again, what good does it do? None. It does me zero good to sit back and say, I'm gonna do better about this, and just keep saying I'm gonna do better and do better and do better and do better and do better. I'll give y'all a prime example. Bob, I love you for this. Bob is in my discipleship group that I meet with on Saturday mornings. I'd come on a Saturday morning and I'd say, one of the things that I'm really struggling with and needing prayer for is my time management. Something we all struggle with, but me in particular, that was something that I brought forth to the guys and said, hey, I'm struggling with this. I need prayer about it. And Bob looked at me one day and said, he said, Hunter, You're asking for all this prayer about time management, and the question is, are you really putting forward effort to change that? The reality is, no, I really wasn't. I was putting so much effort into all these other things, all these things that, I thought really mattered, but I wasn't putting effort into the things that really did matter. Sticking true to what I would tell somebody, what time I would tell somebody I would be there. Sticking true to when I'd have something done, or when I'd do this, or when I'd do that. Guys, if we're not willing to respond with action after our prayer, then what good does it do? Nehemiah and his team, if you will, they took and they responded with prayer, but they also responded with action. What did they do? They put the guards out. They put guard to help guard them throughout the night. They didn't just put the guard up throughout the day. They didn't just say, okay, the 3 hours while we're at church on Sunday morning, we're not going to put the guards out. They didn't say we're not going to put the guards out, or we are going to put the guards out. Let me get it right. They didn't say that the 3 hours while they're there, they're only going to put the guards out then. They said, we're going to put the guards out all the time. We're going to be willing to face the opposition all the time. We can't just do so by sitting back and saying, hey, guys, I need prayer for this today. Thanks for praying for me. See you next week. I'll be back with the same thing. It doesn't do any good, guys. Olivia? 100%. Actions do speak louder than words, 100%. And I'll tell y'all that 100 times over. Number 3, my third point, is we face opposition through unity amid adversity. Unity amid adversity. Despite facing opposition, Nehemiah and the people of Jerusalem remained united in their purpose and determination. They stayed united through it all. How many of you have ever been in a group project, done a group project with somebody else? How many of you had that one person in the group that said, I'm not doing absolutely nothing? The entire group? Yes, sometimes. I know I've had group projects where group projects, whatever it may be, where somebody in the group said, I'm not doing anything, right? I'm not going to do anything to help out the cause. I'm not going to be united together to do this one thing, right? That's opposition. That's somebody who is opposing your point. Somebody who's opposing your end goal. Your goal, your meaningful goal behind it. Guys, it's very similar to what Nehemiah had going on. They had a goal. Their goal was to establish and build upon their relationship with Christ, and yet they continued to have this opposition, people quite literally attacking them, physically attacking them, and continue to have this opposition that they were like, they finally had to stand up one day and just said, that can't happen. We can't let that happen. We can't do that. But notice what Nehemiah does at the closer to the end of chapter 4. Whenever he talks about the trumpeter. What was the purpose of the trumpeter? Huh? To alert. To alert who? Everybody, right? It wasn't just to say, hey, you over there, the one with the sword, come over here. There's an attack. And it wasn't to the one person that was all the way on the other side of the city saying, hey, there's an attack all the way over here. No, it was to gather everybody there in defense for who? In defense for who? In particular, Jesus. Thank you. Basic Christian answer. Jesus. There we go. All right. Basic church answer. We're getting there. We're getting there. Y'all are quiet today. It's really weird. That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. Hey. So Nehemiah had to foster unity among the people in ways that were very practical to say, we're going to face this together. We're going to face this opposition as a team. This is where my game comes into play. Those of y'all, we had groups of 4, right? What was your opposition? The rope, right? You just had your whole group look at you like you were absolutely insane. But so the opposition was the electric fence or the rope in front of you, right? And you had to work as a team to get to a certain goal. Your goal was to get over without touching the opposition in front of you. Try to get around the opposition, right? Try to better that. Now, what did you do to get up to that point? The first team, we're going to ignore that first one, and we'll go back to the second one. No, I say that because of what I'm trying to get from this. What did you have to do in order to finally make it across? Work together, but you had to plan ahead of time too. You had to plan together. You had to do everything in unity together. You had to work together to get to that goal. Guys, there's too many times where we try to face opposition, something as big as this, by ourselves, and we can't do it. Could everybody in your group necessarily jump over that by themselves? Could everybody in the group do it by themselves? What was hindering you? The height? The rule? The fact that only one person could jump? There's things in place that make us have to face opposition in front of us. But the reality is, guys, we work better as a team. Why can't we do that together as a group of believers? Why is it that we have this church over here that believes the same things that we do, and yet they won't even talk to this church over here because their worship style is different? Or because they don't pass around tithe plates at service? But really though, why is it that we have to put so much emphasis on, oh, our church did this, our church did that, our church did this for these people, and our church did this for the... It doesn't matter, guys. We're all on the same team. Why is it that as believers in the body of Christ that we are so afraid to stand up and say we're all on the same team for Jesus? Why are we afraid to say that? But in the end, does that really matter? Situational awareness. Huh? Which part? Why is that important? Why is situational awareness important? When facing opposition, why is that important? What's that?
I said so you can escape quickly.
If you know the battleground, that's good. That's good. If you know the battleground, you can form a better plan. Guys, we face so many times in our life. I don't like using the word opposition so much in this because I feel like I'm boring y'all with it. But the reality is we face so much just nonsense in our life that we just don't know which way to turn. We just don't know how to be aware of the thing that really matters. We don't know how to be aware of which way is up, which way is down, which way is left, which way is right. We don't know which way to go. We're not aware of what's really going on, huh?
Left is always left. That's not situational. Left.
Hannah's got it. Knowing when to go left, knowing when to go right, knowing when to go forward, when to go back. You know what? It's always got to be a Dickerson. I said it. Love you guys. Certain people got a chuckle out of that, and it's fine. Guys, we have to be aware of what's going on in order to face opposition. We have to be aware of when to seek unity in order to face the opposition. We have to be aware of when to seek prayer. We have to be aware of when to set guard. We have to be aware of these things. Guys, there's too many times where we cannot trust God's provision through it all. There's too many times where we don't. There's too many times where we're not willing to stand up and face that. So we have to be aware of that. So guys, this is where that last question of what role does our faith take place in overcoming our obstacles. All of our faith, all of our trust has to be in who? Why is that? Jesus, yeah. I love you guys. Jesus is him, okay. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Say it louder. Say it loud and proud. Guys, Jesus is the only way. He's not just the way, he is the only way. Y'all pray with me real quick. Father, we come to you humbly today to just sit back and say, God, there's some things that are going on in our lives. There's some things there's some things of opposition in our life. Father, there's some of us in this room that may just not know which way to go. Not know that you're right through that door in front of them. And all they got to do is open up the door and walk into your arms. Father, there's things in our life that you place in front of us to say, God, to tell us that the only way to turn is to you. So, Father, it's my prayer that tonight that each and every one of these students, that if they haven't realized that in their life, if they haven't realized the fact that it's the only way is you, that the only way is directly through you, that it's my prayer that they hear that. It's my prayer that they know that Father, you are the way, the truth, and the life. Father, I just pray that all of us in this room, no matter the opposition that we face, no matter the struggles that we may face in our life, no matter the things that we have going on, that we can just be open to us as a body of believers, to be unified as one, to be pointed to you. And so, Father, it's in your most gracious name that we pray. Amen.